Hello. Today we're going to talk about PDO, a little bit about what it is and why you might want to use it. In this video, I am not going to make a connect script. In this video, I'm going to attempt to outline the process, talk about some of the things we're going to be dealing with, so then when it comes time to create that connect script, things should go better. The most important thing to me is I want to make a short, concise video on a connect script, and this is going to help get us closer to that and help you understand what you're doing better. All right, so just the basic overview of PDO. So PDO stands for PHP Data Objects. So I don't know that that's terribly important to anything, but that is what it stands for. It's an object-oriented alternative to MySQLi. I always think of it in relation to MySQLi because that's what I learned to interface with my databases in. It's what I generally teach students when they're getting started. I always feel a little bit bad about teaching MySQLi because PDO is newer, better, it's latest, greatest kind of thing. The reason I don't jump straight into PDO is it's a little bit harder to get going with. And let's be honest, if you are watching a how to get started with anything video, you're probably either here because you want this to go well quickly, right? First attempt, something like that, or you probably tried to do this on your own and probably it didn't go so great. So, in a world of instant gratification, this is not exactly the best choice, but there are a lot of reasons that you might want to use PDO. So, data access later, oftentimes that'll be abbreviated as DAL. I'm not going to explain too much about that, but long story short, it supports database portability. So the idea is it's a layer of abstraction which allows you to interface with the functionality of the database as opposed to the underlying database. So what that means, your database queries are going to be based on functionality as opposed to the underlying storage medium. You could port this application from, say, MySQL database over to Oracle or something like that without having to rewrite all your calls. The only thing that you would need to modify is the database driver. Literally, the first thing you specify in your connect is the database driver that you want, which specifies the database that you're using. So that's what's meant by portability and database independent, is that we're not going to be focusing on the underlying storage technology. If you ever need to switch your storage, then you're not going to have to modify anything other than the connect script. Another major upside here is that this supports prepared statements. Prepared statements are your best defense against SQL injection attacks, and you do have to be aware of those and protect yourself against those. Prepared statements are your best defense there. PDO supports those. That's one of the big upsides of using it. Honestly, I have never had to make a change to my underlying data storage, but it's nice that you could. This prepared statements is a big one. It's generally more efficient. Of course, there are pros and cons, various scenarios where it could be less efficient, but generally speaking, PDO is more efficient than a procedural call. And the last thing I'll mention is that PDO is supported in PHP 5.1 and later. So it's been around for a while, but it hasn't been around forever. So I believe I've already mentioned once that PDO is the latest and greatest. I oftentimes contrast it to MySQLi. It hasn't been around forever, and that's one of the reasons it's not as widely used as it is, because a lot of people like myself learned MySQLi. So the next thing I'm going to do is contrast PDO with what I have taught a lot of before, which is MySQLi. So if you want to connect in MySQLi, it's MySQLi Connect. Right? If you've watched some of my videos before, you've probably seen a lot of these functions. Notice it's always MySQLi, which is actually the name of the driver, underscoring the name of the function. In the world of PDO, this is an object-oriented syntax. So you'll see the operators here, that arrow operator. That means you are accessing either a property or a method of an object. In my previous week's lecture, I talked about object-oriented syntax, and that's kind of one of the reasons I did, because we were going to be using PDO this week. So PDO is object-oriented, so you're going to notice that syntax there. So you see, you're doing the same things, it's just got a different syntax, and you're going to notice that object-oriented element of the syntax right there. Now, the last thing I'm going to talk about, and I think this is probably the most important part of this, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, getting up and running with PDO is more difficult because if you want to do this well, and I think you're obligated to do this well, you've got to deal with some things like error handling and error reporting. So PDO is very difficult to debug. That is one of the reasons I don't teach it, and I do teach MySQLi first, because that's way easier to debug. And when you're getting started, ability to debug something is very important. So when we set up our connection, we're going to set up our connection. We're also going to do some basic error handling and turn on some error reporting options. So as I said in the beginning of this video, I'm just trying to outline the process and talk about some of the things that we're going to tackle in the next video where we create the actual connect script. I do not intend to spend too much time talking about why we're doing what we're doing, because this video right here kind of addresses some of what we're going to be doing. The upcoming video on creating that connect script is going to be as short as I can make it, and because I've spent some time talking about it right here. So if you're interested in creating that connect script, then I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.